welcome everyone. This is Claire Seppings, and Claire is a member of the Women's Connection Services Advisory Committee and chair of the Victorian Custody Reference Group. And her topic today is on creating positive performance, reformative change. So Claire, welcome. And now you mentioned that we were talking the other day, and you mentioned that your aspiration is to bring about change in the criminal justice system. So could you share with our audience here today your driving force behind that?
Sure. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I decided at the age of 14 to be a social worker. I was a social worker by the age of 21. I decided I wanted to have my final placement in the Winlayton Youth Girls Training Centre back then in Melbourne. I can't quite remember why I wanted that, but it must have been inside me that I needed to do that. When I came out of there, it was way too much. I thought I was only not much older than the girls myself. But
sorry to interrupt you. Thank you for letting me know. Can you just perhaps bring your microphone just a little bit? And maybe guys, if you can't hear, perhaps if you could just go to your speaker and up the level a little bit too, so you can hear our speakers. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me know, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, good good reminder. Anyway, the criminal justice system just kept coming back and tapping me on the shoulder throughout my life. The next time it came around was when I decided to be a naturopath, and I was asked to run a program in Bendigo Prison. Next, I'm back in Centrelink social working, and I got tapped on the shoulder, Claire, can you start our prison portfolio for Centrelink? That was, I suppose, the professional side. It just kept coming back to me and back to me. And then it touched on me personally when I met a person who had been going in and out of the system as well. I kept that to myself for a long, long time and just kept looking at through a professional lens until probably around 2013 or so, I realised, hang on a minute, I know why I know more about what needs to be done because I'm experiencing it personally as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. What an incredible journey, but also thank you too for sharing and being so vulnerable here with us today. And so your driving force was because of your personal experience?
It's really both, I guess.
Right.
Sure, there's the personal side where I have the inside, I guess, what it's like for those that are going through it, as well as families going through it.
Yeah.
But it essentially, it is me of what I see of what's needed, not just through that, but it's because I'm a professional social worker as well.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect as well. So I guess it's the professional lens and the personal lens that I bring to that. But it's
fantastic. Yeah. Thanks, Claire. Now, in 1984, you mentioned that you began your career with the Department of Social Security back then, now known as Department of Human Services. Or no, it's called something different now.
Services Australia. Yep.
That's it, Services Australia, since I was last there. And in 1998, you worked as a social worker in Centrelink. And then later, as you mentioned a moment ago, you managed Centrelink's Victorian Justice Services Program for 10 years. And that's where you and I got to meet in the prison. And now throughout this time, you developed many, I guess, and substantial relationships with government and community. What do you think were your biggest challenges?
I guess when I look at from what worked well, the amount of people that I met where you're on the same page. I met so many kindred spirits. One person would move on from their role that I'd connected with. The next person that came on was just as good. I was completely blessed with the external stakeholders in the system, amazingly. Sure, along the way, not everybody is your champion.
Yeah.
Some people naturally feel threatened as well by that. So you have a lot of bumps and you'll have a lot of personal challenges. I had a mentor. I see him that he was a mentor. He was the person that gave me the opportunity in the first place, internally through the work. He once said, you know, it's about people being comfortable in their own skin. And in a sense, those that feel challenged or threatened or whatever, what you're doing, they just don't feel comfortable in their own skin.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I love what you said there. So just going back to some people feel challenged, and do you mean in terms of leadership and allowing you the space to do what needs to be done in order to, I guess, assist and support people within the community who best need, and particularly in the justice system? Is
No, look, I mean, I'd say anyway, that was sort of in early days of doing that. And later on, overwhelmingly throughout the whole time I was doing that, I just had so many people where we, you know, were willing to help and do work together. I guess though, that there's an aspect of me that, and maybe it comes from that Winston Churchill and the Churchill Fellowship, I'm a
yeah,
never surrender person.
yeah,
So I never give up.
I love
So,
that.
so some projects took 2 years.
Yeah,
It's fine. It took 2 years to finally have the coffee with the right person that said, "Oh yes, I know what to do. I'm the one
yeah,
that can help."
I love that.
It takes time. It takes time. But also, I guess in the real world, we can create things and projects, and then time moves on, and other people come along, and they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
That's about our own personal resilience. And I've got to say, this little bit of advice I just came across my way the other day, and I thought, yes, it really resonates with me. Don't attach yourself to people, projects, organisations, and companies.
Wow. Wow.
They
There's so
can
much
change.
power in that, Claire.
Attach yourself to your mission and your calling,
Wow.
and that's where you'll find your power and your peace.
Wow.
And I
That is,
think, you know,
yeah, that is, I love, love, love that. And a couple of people have said, so true, love it. I'm not a surrender person. That is beautiful. That is beautiful, Claire. And I think it's so on point right now, because a lot of people tend to do that, don't they? When they work for an organization, they all of a sudden identify themselves as that, and they give everything else up, and they're not an individual. They don't think for themselves. They don't feel for themselves. It's all about that.
yes.
And it's so important to remember, as you said, and you said it so beautifully, don't ever surrender yourself, and remember what your purpose, you know, what is your absolute purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, and what is important to you. A very powerful message, which, Claire, takes me to the next question. And I know how passionate you are about this, because I have followed your journey
Yep.
forever. Is you spoke about Churchill Fellowship. Please, you know, share with our community the incredible stuff that you've done. And guys, if you have any questions for Claire as we're talking here today, please feel free to pop it in the chat box.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so around 2014-15, you know, life with work started, you know, changing of what I was going to be doing in that space. At the same time, my ex-partner, being 5 years out of prison, ended up back in prison. It was almost like the stars aligned, catalyst just kept happening. I went to visit my ex-partner in prison, and out of the blue he said, "I don't know how to be straight. I don't know how you live the way you live." And it dawned on me after all these years that no matter what I'd been doing personally or had all been doing professionally, there was something that was a missing link about this. At the same time, then I came across online about an agency in Sweden, and I clicked on the link, and sure enough, here were these guys that were former prisoners, criminals, drug addicts, and they were delivering these services across prisons in Sweden. And I thought, hang on a minute, I think there's a missing link that we don't have here in Australia. And sure enough, a friend of mine from Deakin said, why don't you apply for a Churchill Fellowship? Now, I'd heard about these Churchill Fellowships and had seen people and looked at who had got it and thought, wow, that's nothing I could ever dream of going for. But over 2 years and canvassing it with people across Corrections Victoria, is this something that we could pursue about what these people are doing in Sweden? The crux of the idea was around peer mentoring, having peers. The fact that actually, when you think about the people all working mostly in the criminal justice system, most of them have never experienced it themselves.
Right, yeah.
So the peer aspect, the credible messenger aspect, the aspect of I've walked in your shoes was missing. And
Oh,
that's where I
yeah.
don't know how to be straight. I don't know how you live, and I don't know how you live.
Absolutely. It's about connecting to understand.
Yep.
And you know, when we don't know what we don't know, we can't connect. And I love what you said there, particularly in places such as, but firstly, I just want to say thank you for sharing that. I've had some comments here, people saying they appreciate you sharing. We appreciate you sharing all of this with us here today. It's very personal, and we just want you to know that we do really appreciate it. No, you're so welcome. You know, the criminal justice space, because I worked with you in there, I know how vulnerable people are and how isolated they feel, and to be able to understand them is key, and peer is so important, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? So I got the Churchill Fellowship. And I did it for, I guess I was the one driving it. I was the one doing it. I wasn't doing it for an organisation that I was working with.
Yeah.
I was doing it for a system, a sector.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I was back, Corrections Victoria backed me for that. So I was free to, go off and off I went. So in 7 weeks, I met with over 100 people across 6 countries.
Wow.
and about 60 agencies.
What an experience.
And I came back with so much more, and more than just that peer aspect. I came across people, and when you're talking about people in the system, vulnerable and so on, we have in that system entrepreneurs, natural born leaders, and I met those people that had been through the system, come through addictions, and they were leading their own organisations.
Wow.
And employing people as well who had been through the similar circumstances.
Wow.
But they were helping inform what reform is needed. This organisation called User Voice, their motto is only offenders can stop reoffending. Justice Leadership USA said those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from the resources and the power to do that.
I love that. Repeat that again so we can write it down in the chat room, someone.
I'll read it exactly. So Glenn E. Martin, who established Justice Leadership USA, a former prisoner who'd been in Rikers, he said, those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from resources and power.
Wow. That is profound. What are your thoughts on that? That has so many messages in itself, doesn't it, Claire?
It does. And look, I think what I was wanting to say just a bit earlier as well about, and when we were working in that space together, we were coming across natural born leaders in that whole service that we were doing. And I think what, I guess if I could impart to anybody, it's about not empowering people, it's about giving people opportunity and letting them shine. Because if they are a natural born leader, then off they go. They will be doing that. And I think we saw that in spades. People that were at all different levels, often, like lower levels than us, off doing that work and creating own processes, project ideas. It's not about the level you're at. It's and I guess I'll share one other thing where a wonderful woman, Maria Straub, who I met in the prison system, who was teaching, she said to me and to other prisoners, if anyone tells you that they can empower you, run.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, she said that then that is assuming that you don't have it, and I'm the one to give it. I'm the one to give it to you.
Yeah.
So that's where I would say it's about opportunity.
I love that. Yeah, and empowering, I suppose. Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful too. I guess empowering, it's the meaning we give to it too, isn't it? So
Yeah.
in terms of maybe how we deliver our message and how we perhaps provide the tools and the strategies and the skills to somebody to be able to, and I'm going to use the word empower, and by that empower, I guess what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it could also come across as disempowering, really, because it's saying that they don't have, or people don't have the ability within them to go forth and do what they need to do. However, I think it's how we communicate that
Exactly.
that matters, really.
Exactly.
Um,
I've also, what I came across overseas where they were doing it in spades, really, and we're kind of trying to get the idea here. It's having the person-centered focus. So
right.
starting where the person is at.
Yeah.
We tend to be we've got the solutions. We'll give them, here's the service. Now you adapt to what we're providing. Yeah, everything. You start with the person first. Where are
I
they
love
at?
that. I love that.
And building on that.
Absolutely. And it's very similar to something that Nick touched on previously, in that getting to know the person,
Yep.
being cool to learn from people. And, you've given me now a different meaning to empower as well. And I used to use that quite a lot, but I
Yep.
see where you're coming from in that, just individualizing that person and what is it within them that they can perhaps even embellish and grow even more on the skills, because we all have skills and tools, and abilities. It's just knowing that we have them for us to be able to take the step forward.
Exactly.
And particularly vulnerable people, or people who perhaps, haven't lived the life that we're all different. We all come with different experiences. And, you mentioned something really important before, in that and thank you again for sharing, in that your ex-partner didn't know how to live any differently. And that is so key, because we don't know what we don't know. And so if we don't know that we have abilities and qualities that no one's ever told us about before, how do we even extract that?
That's right.
Yeah. And so, and having what you're doing, some amazing, I guess, services and communities and peers to be able to help us extract our qualities, I think is what's really important.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. Thanks, Claire. You mentioned the word natural born leaders, and I know that I after speaking with you the other week, I raised that with someone, and they said, "Oh, there's no such thing as natural born leaders." So, and I'm trusting and I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, that a lot of people out there are saying there's no such thing. Leaders are built. Tell me, do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Look,
Natural leaders.
I think so. I believe, and through my experience, I suppose, that people are born leaders. You don't make leaders. You can make a manager, and you can make a good manager. I think what people have tended to do is confuse the two.
Right, totally. And there's a difference.
Yep.
There's
Yes.
an absolute difference.
Yes.
And there doesn't have to be, by the way.
Yes.
There doesn't have to be. So yes. And so a leader has different qualities, as we all know. But then look, at the end of the day, there doesn't even have to be that different. We don't even need, there doesn't need to be that difference, does there?
And I don't think, and I guess a leader isn't necessarily always conscious. It doesn't have, it's not a thing that you do.
From passion, from your heart. So
Yes.
You've got that connection, and what you want to do is you actually want to grab people and bring them with you onto this amazing journey. So you're all on the same page, really, and you're all heading in the same direction together.
Yeah, and it's getting back to that, being comfortable in your own skin. It's not about proving yourself. It is about helping other people shine.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Claire, I have a question here, or in fact, someone shares here, if I may. I'm just going to go back to that. It was a very, where is it? Right. Someone mentions, I find it hard to understand, and thank you guys. I appreciate you popping in your questions and your comments. They're really important. I find it hard to understand that people don't know how. Now, when we make the choices and we have the choice, we only have to watch and learn, and we are all have choices. We all know how and what is right and wrong. You know, that's a really great comment you make there. But the thing is, like anything, we learn. If we've never done it before, how do we know? If we've never been exposed to things, we don't know. So, for example, let's take the criminal justice space.
Yeah.
And you and me, who perhaps have never been in that situation before, I've got to tell you, from my experience, and Claire, I'd love you to share yours too, I had never entered a criminal justice space before. So I didn't know about the criminal life, how it worked. When I went into the prison system, I noticed it's a different world on so many levels. Communication, thinking, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we hold ourselves, the way we dress, even everything matters. Something I had never experienced before because I'd never been in that environment before. So we don't know what we don't know if we've never experienced it, nor if it's never a forefront in our mind that we want to know about it, we want to focus about. Would you agree?
Sure. Look, I've got to say that there's so much more that I have learned even since, though, and it goes to, I think, what our person in the chat said. So like when I came back from my Churchill Fellowship, blitz media conferences about what we needed to do here. Finally, 2017, my friends at Deakin Uni and together we were able to get philanthropic funds to trial an idea of peer mentoring, which we did for the last 2.5 years down with in Margonick Prison in Geelong. That has since been, evaluated and everything at the moment's on hold, isn't it, in this world at the moment? But what I even learnt there, where we actually had then peer mentors and going back into the prison and seeing, the experiences of people, and it goes back to even what my friend Maria said, change your mind, you change your life. At any given time of a person's journey through addiction, crime, they make the call to change their life.
Totally.
And I saw that over and over again. We can't do that for them.
No.
We can only have our services in place ready for when they need it. But they make the call. And some do that early on. Some do that years later. Some never do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. What's that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And, it's so true. People make the choice, and we've seen it in the justice space, Claire, where people have chosen not to come back. But people have chosen to continue coming back.
Yeah.
And I remember asking many questions. What brings you back? I was there for 10 years, and 10 years I'd see people coming over and over, and I used to miss you here still. Yeah, I am, but so are you, like you're back.
Yeah.
And the question was, why? And their answer was, well, this is all I know. This is where I feel safe. This is where people accept me. This is where people get me. This is where people understand me. This is where I'm allowed to be me.
Yeah.
And so that is very powerful, What does that say? And exactly where you're going with it, Claire, is that there's a lag, there's a gap outside of the criminal justice space where it's not accepting. And so what they're doing is reoffending to be accepted.
Sure. But I guess as well, I think that's always going to be the case. Media is not going to change. Community attitude is not necessarily going to change. Again, it's about back to the person, and people do change in spite of that.
Yeah.
And totally. They need to do that. I did find that often their own personal catalyst was through a relationship. It's all about relationships.
Totally. It is all about relationships. I love that. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yep.
So, Claire, in terms of creating, and I just want to again thank you for all that you've shared here today. It's been extremely profound, and it's fundamental, and it's absolutely key for us to have all this knowledge, I suppose, and to understand. But in terms of creating positive reformative change, do you have, what resources do you have available, I guess, that our audience can tap into?
Sure. my Churchill Fellowship report that has got all about the people that I met, and it's just got loads of information that people can see, what people are actually doing in that reformative change space. My Churchill Fellowship report is available on the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust website. And there's also then, through my blog, seeing all the, different journeys that I've been on in that space. But I'm always happy to talk to anybody as well.
Claire, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. You've certainly opened up and let us in, and I want you to know personally that I appreciate and I love you as a human, and I know that a lot of people have appreciated what you've shared here today. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon, and all the very best with everything that you do, because your purpose is absolutely incredible.